whatever size your business is, this is something that as business owners and founders, we forget, is that success comes from self-care. Because if you don't care about yourself and have that self-respect, you don't put the right boundaries in place to maintain your energy, maintain your focus, your well-being, and to therefore have the most you can give to your clients and your team as well. So I think very often we put ourselves last, but like profit first, we need to put ourselves first, and then everything else works from there.
Hello, Profit First entrepreneurs and thought leaders. I am so excited. We have a special guest today. Yes, we have Melita Campbell. Now, Melita is an award-winning mindset coach. She's also the founder of a company called Dream Client Blueprint. And the world often refers to her as the value whisperer. And they refer to her that way because what she does is she inspires business owners to think differently about how they own, communicate, and really sell their true value. Yes. Really, how do you get your ideal customer to understand how you're going to change their lives, right? Is what Melita does. Now, Melita's as a thought leader, she has been featured in some of the top business media titles, including Forbes, Entrepreneur Magazine, and Fast Company. And she regularly inspires audiences around the world through her public speaking and practical workshops. She's the host of a popular podcast called The Driven Female Entrepreneur. And she's also a best-selling author of a book called A Shy Girl's Guide to Networking. So please join me in welcoming Melita to our platform. Today, we're going to talk about how do you communicate your true value so that your ideal customer can find you, grow their income, and you grow your income, right? And impact with ease and confidence. So join me in welcoming Melita Campbell to our platform. Hey, Melita, how are you doing today?
I'm great. It's exciting to be here.
And we're excited to have you. So first of all, you're an author. I love authors. You know, I'm an author, and I think that books, they inspire the world to think differently. And so your book is called A Shy Girl's Guide to Networking. Tell me a little bit about what inspired you to write that book and what inspired you to even be able to want to help entrepreneurs with communicating their true value.
Oh, huge question to start with. I'll start with the book. So I am an introvert, so naturally shy, grew up labeled the shy girl. And that was a label that stuck with me for far too long. But when I was working in my career in London, I kind of found my way and I was able to grow my career in a nice sort of organic way. And I didn't really have to network very much. But then I moved to Switzerland where I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any professional connections. And here, everything is done through networking. So it was a really important skill to develop. And I pushed myself to start networking, but I was a complete disaster. What I was telling myself in my mind was just all the wrong things. On the way to the event, I was reminding myself all the ways I'd mess up. After the event, I was reminding myself of all the ways it was awful. It really wasn't working against me. So I started reading all these books to try and learn the skills. And while they shared lots of valuable advice about how to network successfully, they didn't really cover this idea that I just was dreading it. I was so scared of walking into a room of strangers. And that part for me was missing. Over time, I developed my own strategy that enabled me to embrace my introverted nature and network successfully. I became known for my network, and bit by bit, organizations and companies were asking me to present on networking and help their teams and individuals to grow their networks too. And when I stood up, my talk was titled A Shy Girl's Guide to Networking. Everyone was like, but you're not shy. So it felt like an important message that was being missed out there. So that's why I started writing the book, so that those that couldn't come to any of those talks that I was giving could read the book and get the skills. So the first half is all about my victory formula, which helps you develop the mindset for success and enable you to network on your own terms and start really building connections that work for you in a way that feels really comfortable and empowering. And then the second part of the book is practical tips, like on advice and frameworks on what exactly to do before, during, and after a networking event, because it's really the before and after that has the biggest impact. And that's the part that most people like myself aren't even aware of. So yeah, I'm really excited by the book. It became a bestseller within 48 hours. And I was a bit nervous of the title because I thought, well, maybe people will think, oh, I don't want to learn from a shy girl or see me in some kind of weak position, but actually it really resonated with people very quickly. So yeah, it's been a wonderful experience.
Oh yeah, everybody wants to learn from a shy girl, right? We want to learn from someone that's overcome a problem. So definitely that's great. That's a great experience there. Thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about true value. First of all, how did you notice that this was a problem? How did this become into your awareness? And why is it so important for entrepreneurs to share that value?
Yeah, so my career, I've worked now for 3 decades in marketing and communication. So communication was always something that felt pretty natural when I was working in the workplace. And communicating other people's value was always very easy for me. It was something that I almost have this empathetic ability to see the value in other people and put words to that. And to find the questions that help uncover what that true value is. Because the true value is everything to do with what's unique and special about you, everything to do with the outcomes and struggles that your clients have right now, and they can be internal clients if you're working in an office environment. What are they struggling with? What are those outcomes that they want? What is the value they are looking for? And where those two things overlap, that's the sweet spot that you can really build your true value there. And once you start to communicate and build your marketing, build your processes, your offers from this sweet spot, it's yours. It really helps you differentiate yourself in the marketplace. And people don't just buy a product because they like it. They buy it because they see it as valuable for them. So when you find this value sweet spot, everything you do is being valuable to your ideal clients. So it's a really exciting process to reveal that for people. But the reason I discovered it was kind of by accident, really, because I started my business 15 years ago and I was doing communication coaching and consulting for large companies. So I was working with the leaders of parts of the UN for global companies like Nestle, and it was very exciting. But you don't really get to see the impact because you're working on such a huge scale. And I kind of missed that. So I was networking and I just remember going to this one event, and time after time, I was asking people, so what do you do? As you do. And every single time I was like, I bet you do a lot more than that. Because people say, oh, I just do this little thing, or, it's complicated. And they couldn't communicate the true value that they offered. And therefore, they were coming away from these events disappointed because they weren't getting the investment or the clients or the partners or the support that they needed to grow their business. And so I started to see that this was a recurring trend. And we all know this sad statistic that more companies fail than succeed in their first 3 years. And part of it is because they create something that just doesn't have a need in the marketplace. But for many of them, it's just simply that people don't get what it is that they do. They don't know it's available. And once you can communicate your true value, you can change all of that. And I know this now, but at the time I was consulting, I was starting to feel a bit disenchanted and look for another option. And then people were starting to come to me for help building their business. And I was like, no, I can't help you do that. And then one woman turned around and said, but you're the only one that can help me. It's like, okay, what are you seeing that I'm missing here? And she explained that she believed in her product. She was a coach. She knew she could do a great job. But when she talked about her business, even the people that have told her they need her services just go, oh, that's nice, and walk away. So I can't get them to see that they need me. And when it comes to sales conversations, I have no idea how to convince people they should work with me. And of course, that's not the role of a sales conversation. You can't convince anyone to do anything they don't want to. It's all about communicating this true value. So I saw that as something that, using all my prior experience, I could bring all of that together to really help the smaller business owner and the entrepreneur who needs to pitch their services to communicate the true value of what they're doing in a way that was really clear, felt natural, was very easy. And so suddenly I thought, this is what I was born to do. And so that's when I launched the Dream Clients Blueprint to help them build the skills and the confidence and belief behind that as well, because that's key.
I love that. Confidence is everything, right? And I love how you say too, it's, you personally could communicate the value of people. You could really hone in on that. And, I think of myself, if I'm talking about my best friend, or I'm talking about you, Melita, or I'm talking about, just the greatness, it's so easy to talk about other people, right? And talk about what they have been able to accomplish or what they can do, or really show your testimonial. But, for a lot of people, talking about themselves is a challenge, right? It's hard to stand up and be like, I did this and this and this and this and this, and a lot of it is humility, the way we're taught, right? And so it's hard. So let's talk about some ways that as entrepreneurs, we can really start to connect with that true value and really be able to say that, for years, I would go to networking events. I'll just share my story, and I would say, I'm just an accountant. I'm just an accountant. Or if I don't feel like talking, I'm just an accountant. I don't tell about all the millionaires we've made, right? Using profit first, but that's a challenge, right? Talking about yourself. So let's talk about, how do we get these entrepreneurs to step in a place where they can share their true value? Where do we start with that?
Yeah, you're so right. When we are the face of our organization and we have to say, hey, we're brilliant, it feels really awkward and wrong. It's so much, you can say it for someone else, or if you're working on behalf of a company, this company's amazing, but doing it for yourself, I know we all have this fear of rejection, I think, is at the heart of it, behind it. But the way to do it is to understand where they're struggling and how you can add value to that, how you can get them to where they are. And therefore, if you don't tell these people that you can help them in a way that's clear and engaging and helps them see the credibility, the logic, and the emotion behind that, because every decision to buy is emotional, then you're doing them a disservice. So we started our business to help people to solve that problem. And if we're not doing that, we're letting ourselves down and we're letting the other people down. So it's worth reminding ourselves that on a regular basis. Then a key thing is not to tell people you're brilliant. It's almost like if I say, hey, I'm fantastic at this, then people are like, oh yeah, really? Prove it. It's awkward and it doesn't really open a conversation. It doesn't demonstrate value. However, when we talk about, if you were to talk about those millionaires that you've made, how that happened, sharing the case study, you're really not saying I'm amazing, you're demonstrating it. So it's very different. And suddenly people hear this case study and they think, oh, that sounds like it's possible for me. That's exactly what I want. Let me ask Suzanne if she could help me do that. So it suddenly becomes much more natural. And one thing that a lot of my clients, I help them do is to share their vision, because we all have this highest vision that we really would love to see this change happen in the world. We may not know how we're going to achieve it, but if we start there, then other people are instantly engaged. I had an event recently and I asked everyone to do that. Instead of introducing your business, talk about your highest vision. And then when they came back to the room, they had to present the other person's vision. The energy was through the roof. Everyone was so excited. They were like, this person really has to do this. I can't wait to support them. I'm going to connect them. Suddenly, I think Simon Sinek talks about this in The Power of Why, that, not everyone has a cause. But if you have a cause, then people who align with that cause are going to come underneath and support you. They want to be part of that with you. So sharing your highest vision and why you're really excited about that, why you love to get certain results for your clients, then that can really inspire people as well. And again, it feels easier to talk about that. And you can do so with a lot of energy, because you get judged on your energy as much as anything else. And when you bring that energy and passion, suddenly it's much, much easier to talk about your work than if you're saying, hi, I'm so-and-so and I'm fantastic. So using case studies, client stories, and our vision, but also our founder story, that's really a great place to start. Why did you start this in the first place? So for me, it was seeing small businesses struggle. And at first I didn't realize that I had the tools to help them. But then I realized there weren't many other people, certainly in this area, so ideally placed to help these business owners and entrepreneurs to start to identify that value, understand how to communicate it, but also as a mindset coach, I could help them really believe in that too, because that's the key thing. If you're talking about a product that you don't believe in, or an offer or a business, and you don't fully believe in that, it doesn't come across the right way. People see through that. But the beauty is, once people see that value, the next stage in the sales process, in that customer journey, becomes so much easier because they already see you as someone who's highly valuable to them. So you don't have to, well, I was saying earlier, you don't have to convince anyone of anything. Then you can have a really nice conversation or process where you're just saying, okay, we're both in this area of mutual respect. We can be of value to each other. It's then just saying, well, how and is this really the best fit for you? So it's a very different conversation and process you have after that, once you start with the value.
I love that. Just so many good tidbits there, from, sharing your inspiration of the world and what you want the world to look like, to sharing your founder story. And I think of the first one, I think of like, when you talk about sharing your vision with the world, really that brings up a point about as a host, right? When you're hosting a networking event, for a lot of people, it's awkward, right? It's awkward being in a room where you might know one person or two people and you want to meet everybody in the room, but facilitating that in a way that creates conversation and inspiration and makes people really want to get to know each other. I mean, as a host, creating that environment is extremely important for those that do conduct events. And then the other one I love too is, the talk about your founder story. And so not just introducing yourself, but, this is why I did it, right? This is what the need was in the world and how I wanted to plug that need out there. It's really great from that standpoint. Very good points on that. So tell me about when networking is always like a very interesting thing, right? It's a balance of you talk, I talk, we share, and sometimes we cut the conversation short, right? Let's talk about having those conversations, communicating your true value in a very succinct amount of time, right? Where the conversation feels balanced. What are some tips that you have for that conversation, Melita?
One of my favorite ways to do this is to start a conversation. So often you'll go to, and you'll be in a networking event and someone will pitch you their business straight away. And that feels, you can tell they feel awkward about it and you feel awkward. You're like, okay, that's nice. Thank you. It doesn't really open a conversation. However, one way that you can break it down is, for example, here it helps to understand who the people are in the network so that you can tailor your pitch or your presentation sequence accordingly. I call it a presentation sequence because it's like the 30-second presentation. You give a short presentation but in a way that invites them to say, oh, how fascinating, tell me more, or how do you do this? So that then you get permission to give the next 30 seconds and then the next 30 seconds. So you want to break your introduction down into segments so you can leave space for a conversation. So for example, I could open up with, I don't know if you've ever felt this as a business owner yourself, but do you ever feel a bit awkward telling people how amazing you are? And everyone's going to say, yeah. Say, exactly. That's why I do what I do, is helping people identify their true value and to communicate that with confidence and ease so that they can talk about their business in a way that feels so natural. The other person isn't even aware that they're kind of pitching their services in a way. Like, wow, how do you do that? Or, then it starts a conversation and it doesn't feel pitchy at all or salesy. It really feels like you're just having a nice discussion about what you do. So you can bring your founder story into this. You can bring case studies into this. Very often people think, oh, my business is complicated. So you can use that. Say, what I do, I feel sometimes it's a little bit complicated and possibly even boring just to talk about it. But maybe if I can give you an example of someone I helped recently, it'll help you see what I do. And they're like, oh, great. And then you can give a case study. You've got permission to share that and the results of outcomes of what you do, because that's what people really want, is the outcome anyway. They don't want to buy the wrinkles, they want to buy the beautiful face. So that's always something to keep in mind as well.
I love that. So get to the outcome as quick as you can, right? With that. And so let's talk about, where does it go wrong? Where do entrepreneurs mess up in communicating their value in such a short period of time, right? Because we meet each other, we might not get this second chance, right? And I know there's a lot of emphasis on the elevator's pitch, but sometimes, just like you said, it salesy. Like, you just want to put a sticker on a price tag on a person's forehead, right? It just doesn't feel right. So let's talk about, where does it go wrong with communicating true value so that we can avoid some of those pitfalls and mistakes?
Yeah, great question. I host every month an event where business owners and entrepreneurs can come and practice pitching their introduction. And so I see the same mistakes over and over. So the first one is, particularly if you are at a networking event where you have to stand up and you get a minute to introduce yourself, it's starting, "Hi, I'm Melita. I'm a business coach." And, everyone's turned off. The what's in it for me has gone altogether. The other thing people do, you can just come back to that. You can say your name, but later. Introduce the exciting bit first and then say, "Oh, I'm Melita. And if you want to know more about this, come and see me and give me your card," or whatever. The other thing is telling people how you do what you do. So, for example, coaches, they're like, "Oh, and I've got hypnotherapy and we do some NLP in that. And we've got this wheel thing that we do." They start listing all of the tools they use. And again, it doesn't mean anything to someone else, and it's very boring, and they switch off. It's just too much for them to keep in their mind. So you want to remember that people remember patterns. The shortest pattern is 3. So aim just to give 3 simple things that people can remember, and maybe 3 aspects of your work that have the broadest appeal, so people can say, "Oh, tell me more about that bit." And then you know what they're interested in. And then for the next step of your presentation in the conversation, you can drill down more into that area. So talking too much about your tools and techniques rather than the outcomes and case studies, that's what people are really looking for. That's a really big mistake. And already belittling yourself, as we said earlier. "Oh, it's complicated. I just do this little thing. I kind of," all of this language, and women especially are bad at this, but men are not immune by any means. Already that casts doubt in the mind of the other person. So they're not feeling that you are someone that they can have in their network and confidently recommend to other people or introduce to others, because they're thinking, "Well, I don't know if this person's any good. They don't seem to know if they're any good. So I'm not going to recommend them." And networking is not necessarily about finding your next client, but finding people of interest who may be interested in passing your details on. So you want to have that sort of nice bite-sized nugget that they can easily pass on, and helping to, recognizing that this is just the first step in what could be a very long and happy relationship. So this isn't the only chance you can talk about your business. It's the only chance you get to create that connection, that initial connection, and a desire to know more about your business. But you don't want to just dump them with everything that you have and the year you were established and all of these irrelevant details that it's just too much and it's not interesting. So start with something very small, very interesting, very outcome focused, benefit focused for the other person, and stop there, and then allow that conversation then to continue over time.
I love it. I love it. What powerful advice there. Oh my goodness. So powerful there with that. And so, a lot of times people, Melita, I know you're the networking expert, so we're gonna dig in this a little bit more today. But, a lot of people, they have that problem of transitioning that conversation from once they've communicated their value to what happens next. And it's funny because usually when I go to a networking event, I usually don't have a problem giving out my business card, because I know that 80% of the time they won't call it, right? They just won't call it. And so that probably means there's a lot of awkwardness with the follow-up process, right? Because that's really where the sale happens, is the follow-up process. What are some tips that you have with, now that you've had that conversation, now that you shook hands and you've initiated interest, how do you transition to following up and asking for that meeting time?
Yeah, great question again. So I think it's good to know that you don't need to follow up with everybody, because not everyone you meet at a networking event is going to be what you deem to be a person of interest. So someone who could be a potential client, a potential friend even, or a partner, a supporter, someone that's going to refer you to other people. Some people just don't fit into any of those brackets and they're just not aligned with your vision. So it's okay not to follow up with those people. So it's almost like fishing for coffee. You're just trying to play a game. Like, maybe what are the 2 or 3 people that I would genuinely like to meet for a coffee afterwards and continue this conversation to learn more about them, see how we can create some synergies. So that already takes the pressure off, because we don't have to follow up with everyone, just a small number of people, so that we can build real connection and relationships over time. And also the follow-up, and I felt this for a long time, was that the follow-up should be, oh, are you going to buy from me? And that's really your focus, but it's not. It's just that next step in the conversation. So follow up with something valuable. Remember, right? Try and remember what you spoke to them about. So when you follow up, you can say, hey, Suzanne, how's your podcast going? I know you were going to launch that other episode. It sounded so fascinating. Did you get the response you wanted? You can really have something personal. And then maybe it's a case of, oh, I love the idea of your podcast. I've already shared it on social media. So you've already built up that goodwill in the bank. You've done something to support the other person already. So then you're positioning yourself as someone who is supportive of other people. So the other person is going to think, oh, I want to keep this person around for a little while. And then you've earned your coffee as well. Or I really love talking to you about this idea. It'd be great to hop on a call and have a virtual coffee, or meet up over lunch, or a real coffee, depending on your location, to talk about that further. I think we've got some real synergies there. Or you asked about this product. I'd love to know if it could be interesting to you. So you can follow up that way, but then whatever the outcome, keep following them up, keep sharing articles of interest, or if you've got a talk coming up that was on a topic you talked about, invite them to that. So it doesn't always have to be, are you ready to buy yet kind of phrasing. But this is also where if you have a social media or content marketing strategy, you can use that to your advantage as well, because you can use that to follow up with people, because you're always adding value, always adding more information, and helping and deepening that relationship and deepening the understanding they have of what you do. So some relationships take years of nurturing before they turn into clients or anything fruitful, but you just never know where those conversations are going to take you. So follow up thoughtfully, add value all the time, see how you can already do something that they will see as valuable, like sharing their content or even commenting on something they've shared on LinkedIn, talking to someone else or giving them an introduction to someone else. This kind of thing shows that you're someone who pays attention, you're a thought leader, you care, and you're someone that they want to stick around.
I love that. Great ways to transition with that conversation and really support another human being too. I love that, Melita. Now, Melita, one of the questions I like to ask as we close out our episode is, if you could give our viewers and our listeners one piece of advice, it can be personal, it can be business, what would that piece of advice be?
Ooh, I think maybe 2 pieces. So one, to find your ideal value or your true value, you already have that information. So take a look at any time someone said thank you to you, why did they say thank you? What is it that they've already shown you they value most about your relationship and how you operate? So you have a lot of the clues there already. So I'd go back and check out your testimonials, feedback from clients and friends even, and see if you can start to spot some patterns that will already help you. Personally, when it comes to building a business, and I think whatever size your business is, this is something that as business owners and founders, we forget, is that success comes from self-care. Because if you don't care about yourself and have that self-respect, you don't put the right boundaries in place to maintain your energy, maintain your focus, your well-being, and to therefore have the most you can give to your clients and your team as well. So I think very often we put ourselves last, but like profit first, we need to put ourselves first, and then everything else works from there.
Amen to that, Melita. Amen to that. Put your profit first, put yourself first, right? Because in the day, if you're not well, your business isn't going to be well, and you're not going to be able to contribute to the world in a meaningful way. So definitely you got to take care of yourself. Very great advice there. Now, Melita, how can our viewers and listeners, how do they find you? How do they learn more about you? How do they connect with you to grow and being able to communicate their value?
The easiest way is just to Google Melita Campbell. That's Melita with 2 T's. I pop up. I think I'm the only one. So you'll find my website, melitacampbell.com. And right at the top of my website, there's a free training they can take, which helps you understand how to start communicating your true value. So if any of this has resonated with you, that will already help you take that next step. You can also find me. I hang out mostly on LinkedIn as well. And I've been on LinkedIn for a very long time. So my profile is just Melita. There's no numbers, nothing else, just /Melita. So I'm pretty easy to find.
I love it. And what we're going to do too is we're going to put Melita's contact information in the show notes, her website, her podcast, her LinkedIn, her free training, all of that will be in the show notes too. So when you get a chance to pull over and do that exploratory exercise, it will be there in the show notes for you guys. Thank you, Melita, so much for joining us today and just sharing your insight.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.